Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, August 11th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 22 days. The game against Michigan in 106 days. We're going to be out at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Friday morning getting another look at practice. The Buckeyes will be doing their BTN fall tour visit day. So the Big Ten Network will be out there. So will we. We'll have photos, videos, all sorts of reporting from at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center coming up for you on Friday. I think Tony, Kevin, and I may do a live show Friday afternoon, so you can keep an eye out for that on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. So we'll have plenty of team coverage for you. But today we're going to be talking about recruiting on the morning show, and we're going to be talking to our good buddy Alex Gleitman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Alex, this is another big decision weekend for Ohio State. Jeremiah McClellan, stop me if you've heard this before, Brian Hartline right in the mix for one of the nation's top wide receivers. I know, I'm surprised too. Jeremiah McClellan will be deciding on Sunday who are some of his finalists, how is it looking for Ohio State, and if he does go and end up going to Ohio State, where does he potentially fit in for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, well, the hats on the table are going to be Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, Oregon, and Missouri, but I really see this as a three-team race: Ohio State, Missouri, his hometown school, and then Oregon. Ohio State has had reason to feel good since March, April-ish, but I think they expected a commitment a lot sooner than August 13th. They'll certainly take one on August 13th, but Oregon's made this interesting. Missouri of late has made this interesting. They're potentially in position to get 2 5-stars in this class. They got Luther Burden last year, or I guess 2 years ago, I guess, if you will. But he was a freshman last year. So, they're building a little something. That the message of staying home, and then Oregon, look, not sugarcoating anything. There's opportunity at Oregon. He would be the top receiver in their class, whereas at Ohio State, he's arguably number 3. Not really arguably. Per the rankings, he would be the third highest ranked. Now that doesn't matter, as we've seen Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba prove the rankings wrong. But he would be, kind of third, and I think Oregon and Missouri have been beating that drum home. Ironically, Missouri's about to get the number 7 player in the class, Ryan Wingo, who's also a wide receiver. So, but it's still a little bit different of the Ohio State room versus what the Oregon and Missouri rooms look like. So forget NIL, forget the draw staying home. I think that's kind of been the negative recruiting against Ohio State here. I think it's given Jeremiah McClellan a little bit of pause, but I do think, Brian Hartline's got that. You won't like this one, Tom, but the Mariano Rivera stuff, unlike what we've seen from some of the other Ohio State coaches at, whether it be safety or defensive line or, linebacker, some of these other misses, I do think Brian Hartline will close on his guy, giving Ohio State their third receiver in the class. And if they do get him, I think the great thing about Jeremiah McClellan is he's a very versatile receiver. He can play the outside, he can play the inside at the Z. With who they might be losing to the NFL draft, coupled with potential transfer portal, wouldn't be shocked to see Jeremiah McClellan in the 2 deep next year as a true freshman if he doesn't indeed pick Ohio State. Honestly, I think he'd be in the 2 deep at any of the schools that he chooses of the 3 that I think are really in this one. So it'll be really interesting to see how Sunday goes, but I posted my pick in A-Deck this week. It was for Ohio State, and I think Ohio State's going to get another addition to this number 2 ranked class.
And when Alex mentions A-Deck there, that is his subscriber-only column that he posts every week on our huddle board. That is insiders, members only, at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We end up talking about some of the stuff from that column somewhat frequently on this show, but there's always a lot more that is member exclusive there. That's how this works. You get a little taste here, and if you want the full meal, you got to join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Let's see if Larry Johnson also has his cutter and can still break some bats. He is going to be trying to close on Eddrick Houston coming up on August 22nd. That's just over 10 days away. That is a spot where Ohio State really needs to add at least one more edge rusher. He is a big edge rusher, would be a really, really unique weapon for Johnson in that defensive line. What's the latest on the chase for Eddrick Houston, the 5-star defensive end out of Buford, Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to give away too much. I'm going to probably put something on the board on what I'm hearing. But I think Ohio State, has good reason, had good reason to feel good coming off the official visit. I think they felt good before that. And, what I'll say is I just think that I think that Ohio State, despite some noise from Alabama, despite some noise from maybe USC, some other schools just trying to make this one interesting, I'll just say as of now, I have no reason to move my pick off Ohio State for Eddrick Houston. I know it's kind of a believe it when you see it type thing of a 5-star from the South committing even to Ohio State. But I do think it's trending toward Eddrick Houston breaking the trend. And I do have some kind of new intel off some of the smoke that I think from the KJ Bolden decision, there was some people maybe being negative Nancy's. Oh, Eddrick Houston's just going to go to Alabama or whatever it is. And I'll post what I'm hearing on the board, but I would say I still am optimistic about Eddrick Houston ending up at Ohio State.
Well, all these recruitments are full of really fun twists and turns. Sometimes they end up well for Ohio State, sometimes not. It's been a kind of a mixed bag, but they've landed their fair share. I think they're still number 2 in the 247 composite right now. So, the negative Nancy's, you will find them on the internet from time to time, but does feel like things are trending pretty well for Ohio State overall in the class of 2024. I guess the question now is, what else do they need? They are in pretty good shape pretty much everywhere on offense. They're in decent shape in several spots on defense, obviously feeling pretty good about the corner class, for example. Where do you see them, with McClellan still undecided, with Eddrick Houston still undecided, and several other big targets still out there? What are the positions where you would say, for this to be a truly great Ohio State class, they need to fill these, 3-4 more spots? What do they still need to add? What's still on Mark Pantoni's shopping list this cycle? Yeah,
look, I think you look at the safety position, and they missed out on KJ Bolden. They passed on Babu Toure out of New Jersey. They passed on Reggie Powers in-state. Terion Nichols from in-state could be a cornerback or a safety. They passed on him as well. So between who they passed on, who they maybe missed on, I think that they want the 3 safeties in this class, at minimum 2. They have 1 right now in Jalen McClain. So I think safety is an area where they want to get at least 1, if not 2. I won't be shocked if they kind of go back to some of the guys maybe they passed on earlier in the cycle, see who might be in position, to potentially flip to Ohio State, or if someone's uncommitted to maybe reconsider Ohio State. So, and then, they're gonna be in the flip game themselves. They're also going after Zaquan Patterson. That might be a little bit of an uphill battle, but I think they feel it's Ohio State or Miami right now, and getting him out of the state. Florida State's going to be in there too, just what they're doing in the NIL game. Michigan's in there, but that's an area where I'm looking safety. Not to dive too deep into that. I also think offensive line. They have 4 really good players committed. You can argue, though, that none of them are true tackle prospects. One of the Armstrong brothers, I think Ian Moore, the way he kind of reshaped his body, I think you could also argue that 2 of them are offensive tackle prospects of the 4. And I do think at least 1 of them, if not 2 of them, will end up. But, they got their eyes on Brandon Baker out of California. I think that that's someone that they'd love to rein in. Texas feels good. Oregon's felt good at times. I think Ohio State has a cautious optimism after the official visit that they may be the pick. They'd love to probably get him back on campus for a game this fall if he hasn't decided by then, or even if he has. Nebraska's getting him in for a visit. So, and then obviously USC, him coming from Mater Dei is in the game as well. Watch out for Alabama. They, recently got Peyton Woodyard from Southern California. They have his teammate Brandon's teammate Xavier Brown from Mater Dei. They've done well in California. I wouldn't be shocked if they make a run at him, and I know Georgia's been in that one as well. So that's going to be a tough one. I don't really know if there's any other tackles that, Jordan Seaton, I know they're kind of still in the game on. But that's another area. And then the last one I'll kind of just touch on is the defensive line. Really, Dylan Stewart, South Carolina, Marquise Lightfoot, Miami. They got the upcoming Eddrick Houston decision. Jaden Jackson decided to go to Oklahoma. They did get Justin Scott. So right now they have 1 defensive lineman committed in the class. Booker Pickett, I'm not sure he's a defensive lineman. He's kind of this tweener. maybe if they institute the jack position, he's a good fit for that. I think they can flip Marquise Lightfoot from Miami. I think they will get Eddrick Houston or could get Eddrick Houston. On the interior, I'm not really sure where they go. Maybe they circle back on some guys. Dominic Kirk's from in-state, committed to, new Big Ten team Washington. Maybe he has a good senior year and they give him a look. There's a couple other guys, again, that are going to be in the mix, but those are really the three positions: defensive line, safety, and offensive tackle that I'm looking at for Ohio State the rest of the way.
Well, Alex is obviously one of our recruiting insiders. Lots of great information there on a whole bunch of guys with commitments coming up and some places Ohio State still has a little bit of work to do left in the class of 2024. Alex also has some pretty good connections within the team. He posted a really interesting update earlier in the week about a couple of the true freshmen who are already kind of starting to show out, and one on the offensive side of the ball, one on the defensive side of the ball. A couple guys who have really been impressive early on, and then when we get a chance to talk to players, one of those names was someone brought up basically unasked and talked about as someone who has been very impressive early on this year. So if you want to get access to Alex's insight on the current team as well as recruiting, you can do that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We're heading into the high season, the busy season. We'll have a practice report coming up later today from Tony, Kevin, and I, Alex and Mark on recruiting. Got our X's and O's guys working overtime this time of year, as well as Ohio State heads into what could be a very, very interesting year. I started looking at some of the other national title contenders recently, just to sort of pick apart, hey, where are the holes? Because everyone, it's easy to look at Ohio State and go, okay, well, here's a concern. Turns out everyone kind of has a concern. It turns out there are no perfect college football teams this year, so might be the year that it all comes together for Ohio State. So only one way to find out, and that's to become a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com. We'll have a fantastic team of insiders covering the team, recruiting, X's and O's, all that stuff and more, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com, YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle, Facebook.com/BuckeyeHuddle, you name it.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We are there. You should be there too. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.